Alright, we're back. Now we're gonna try to do some leg chicken thighs. It's always good when I usually buy the boneless ones, and usually, of course, the reason I like that thigh is because they're pretty juicy and they're dark meat. I like dark meat. The white meat, you have to be very cautious when you're barbecuing them because they tend to dry out. But with thighs, it's a little bit more difficult to dry out. I usually buy the boneless ones, and when you purchase them, always inspect them right before you cook them because sometimes there's a little bit of cartilage or even a little bit of bone in there. They forget because you don't want to bite into that. And of course, they're usually this big. I usually cut them in half. I usually like them a little bit more palatable to be able to handle this and cook this properly because it's too big. It'll take even longer. That's it. I'm looking for those bones or the cartilage with these chicken thighs. I'm always looking for them. See, there's nothing there. Just cut them out. Just cut around them. Sometimes there's a little bit in there. If you're lucky, there won't be any in. Neither ones that you actually pick. Um, okay, my hands a little bit. Give me a second. Usually try to keep one of my hands at least clean because you're going to be grabbing the spices with one hand and then mixing with your other hand. So this one I'm going to do a little bit different than the other chicken. This one very similar, but the only thing I'm going to marinate is the acid I'm going to actually use is a little bit of Coke. You don't want to put too much. It's just enough just to liberally coat the chicken. But first I always start with a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, just like before with the other chickens. Wait, be square over there. That didn't look good. And this chicken, usually you do need to put a little bit more salt than normal. So, especially with the thighs. But always start low, and then while you're at the pit, you can actually taste a little bit. That's a good thing about being the cook. You can actually taste the food right before it comes out if you need salt or not. You can actually season it right at the on the pit, on the barbecue pit. So you do that. It's turning a little bit of color. That's what you want, just a little bit. I'm not going to use too much seasoned salt. I'm going to use the chicken rub. Usually you try to buy some kind of good chicken rub, and that usually, of course, has salt in it again, but not too much. I'm going to just sprinkle it over it, and then try to add all the seasons that you actually want. Usually use chicken rub and some, again, of that garlic and seasoning, the herb and garlic seasoning. Mix it up a little bit. Where is it? Here it is, the roasted garlic and herb seasoning that I usually use. Of course, again, I like this particular spice brand because it gives it a lot of flavor. It's very strong and gives a lot of color into it also. Let's see, try to use the last of it. Let's see, actually giving it some good color, a little orange, reddish tint to it. And again, I think it needs a little bit more, so I'll put some seasoned salt. This one has a little bit of paprika in it. So remember, I'm gonna put some a little bit of Coke yet, and so you may have to add a little bit more salt because it's gonna flush that salt out of it. But you want to keep some of it in there still, the seasoning. Mix it up a little bit, give it a little bit more seasoned salt, a little dash. See all the colors, nice reddish tint to it. That's what you want. You don't want a blonde, like I said, you want a blonde chicken. It usually has no flavor. It's kind of blonde. The only one that might be has some flavor is you do like a lemon chicken, but in this case we're just doing a regular, more of a paprika base or cayenne pepper, light cayenne pepper based seasoning into it. And I'm gonna put a little bit of Coke. I usually put about maybe just enough just to cover it, to barely cover it, and then mix it up. All right. See, I'm pulling off the salt right now just by adding that Coke. Because I use a little bit of Dr. Pepper this time around. Um, so, taking out a little bit of that salt, I may not be enough salt, but I'm going to leave it like that. It'll actually absorb it overnight. Like I said, you can actually use the acid on the chicken, the acidic marinade that you're actually using, and leave it overnight. So it's very tough, and I don't know if you ever heard it on the internet. The chicken is actually harder to digest than actually beef, and there's a reason for that. And also, I physically see it with the marinade. The marinade will not, I guess, dissolve the chicken as much as it would with the red meat. So just remember that. Chicken, you could always marinate overnight. Beef, you cannot. You always have to do it, maybe depending on how thick it is. I'll shake it up. I think I'm done with this. It needs a little bit more seasoning, so add some more of that garlic and herb. I put a little bit too much coat, but it's okay. Like I said, chicken requires a little bit more seasoning than normal. It's hard to get in there and penetrate into the meat. So I like these small pieces. Alright, I think we're done with this. And then tomorrow, once I'm going to leave this overnight, we'll actually show you some basic procedures on how to light up the pit. And cause some people don't have a little bit of idea of how actually you light up the charcoal, and I'll show you tomorrow, and then we'll actually see the process of how I actually keep these nice and juicy and finished product when it comes out and we eat it on the table. Alright,